Hello, thank you for tuning in to a live episode of the 757 Renaissance Man podcast. I often bring on people from the 757, but I also bring on people who can give you benefit for those in the 757. And I met Mr. Brenden Mulligan this week while I was working on some of the frustrations of having a podcast. And I know, I have fellow podcasters that tune in and check me out. So I wanted to present this gentleman to you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Brenden Mulligan, and he is the CEO of Podpage, and it is a great company. I'm not just saying that because he's here. I'm saying that because I'm also a customer. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Sean.
Man, so let me tell you, we're gonna save that. I want to get to know you. So I got a series of questions. I got 5 questions I want to ask you to get to know you, and then we're gonna jump into Podpage, which was really a lifesaver for me.
Good.
So question
like to
number. Hey, we're gonna talk about that. Question number 1. Do you like to plan things out in detail or be spontaneous?
It's funny that you ask. So I would say that the majority of my life up to about a month ago is spontaneous. The thing I do like to plan is I love planning trips. I love planning travel, but when I get to the place I'm going, I like to be totally spontaneous, but I do like to plan, sort of look into the future and make some plans. A month ago, I had my first child, and so I have a feeling my answer to that question will be very different going forward, where it's not about what I would like, what I need. Thank you. What I need to do. I have a feeling that we'll be on much more of a schedule and plan and all that stuff. But overall, spontaneous. My wife and I was just saying last night, we were sitting there laughing, and she was like, "Do you remember a month and a half ago when we wouldn't even think about what we were having for dinner until like 8:30 at night?" I think it was like 5:30 and we were eating and we had planned to eat that. So that I'm going through a transitionary moment to answer that question.
What you have, a boy or girl?
A little baby girl.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to give you, my daughter is 14 now. As a matter of fact, today was her last day in middle school and she's now a high schooler. She's
wow, congratulations.
Full-blown teenager.
Wow. You look like you're holding yourself together.
I'm trying. You're going to be her favorite man until the morning of her 13th birthday.
Well, I will try to enjoy every one of those 13 years.
And remember 13 years from now when I say that.
It's really funny.
All right. Question number 2. Do you have an area of your life that you're never satisfied with?
Ooh, I would say holistically, no. Actually, I don't think I think there's no area that I feel this like deep sense of dissatisfaction. There are definitely things that I will probably always want to keep improving and never feel like it's finished, right? So Um, I feel like my business life, it's like I will always want Podpage to be bigger, no matter how big it is.
Mhm.
But I'm satisfied with how big it is. I just will always kind of want it to be bigger. So, but I would say that there isn't an area that I'm not satisfied with where it brings me some sort of like pain of some kind. Um,
Okay.
so, and a lot of
All
that
right.
has been mostly my change as I've gotten older and changing my expectations, not actually succeeding in anything more than I did before, but just being more at peace with how things are.
Yeah, because as you get older, you tend to enjoy the simple things more than the whole rat race of life. When you're younger, it's
Yeah.
like everything is hurry up and do it, hurry up and do it. And when you reach a certain age, you just want to breathe and enjoy the experiences.
Yeah. I think there's also like there were things that I wanted, tangible things, or certain types of success that I like was craving when I was younger and wasn't satisfied. I didn't think I'd be satisfied until I got it. Now, I mean, there's times I go, oh, I wish that we had this, or I wish that we lived in this place, or our house had this, or whatever. There are things that it would be great if we had them, but I'm like, that's fine though that we don't. It'd be cool if we did, but it's not
Yeah.
like I'm not unsatisfied. I wish that same with this pod page is a good example. I wish pod page was bigger, but I'm fine with where it is at this point. And when it is bigger, I'll probably wish it was bigger at that point, and I'll also be fine with it where it is there. So, um, letting
Yeah,
go of that a little bit.
I'm itching to get to that, but I'm trying to slow down. I'm trying to slow
Yeah, yeah,
down.
totally.
But you just did something that's going to make it get to that point a lot faster. But we're going to talk
Yeah.
about that. All right. Question, what is this? 3. What was one thing you begged your parents for as a kid and they finally gave it to you?
A drum set. It's the first thing that
Oh,
comes to mind. And
okay.
and I think the reason that it's funny, there's probably a lot of things um, that would fit that, but for some reason, the drum set's the first thing that comes to mind because I wanted it so badly, but I
Mhm.
didn't know how to play drums. And the pain that my parents must have felt by buying me that thing because it was going to bring so much pain to their life. It was probably one of the most generous things they ever did. So that's the thing that comes to mind. I never really learned how to play them well, but I hit them a lot. So I appreciate my parents putting up with that.
It's funny. So I have a drum story too, and it's in the same vein, but it was kind of the opposite. I've always been a band kid. So growing up, I always wanted to be in marching band. I knew I wanted to be in some sort of musician, some kind of way. And my choices when I was younger, in my mind, I was either going to play the saxophone or the drums. Mom was not down with the drums at all. She said, "Nah, I'm not going to do it. You're not bringing that." Her exact words is, "You're not bringing that noise into my house." So, fast forward, I have my daughter. What's the first thing she buys my daughter? It's a bag of drums. Not just a bag of drums, a bag of drums, cymbals, tambourine, cowbell.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Just a little payback from parents.
But she didn't even let me do it though.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm sure you did other stuff.
That's You're gonna see. You're gonna see with your parents that once they turn into grandparents, they're a totally different person. I was like, God, what did you do with the woman that raised me, and who is this lady?
Funny.
Okay, we got 2 more to go. What's the most annoying bill you have to pay?
Oh, I have a good answer for this, and I'm blanking. Um, oh, oh my God, I know that there's something that I always bitch about, and I'm not remembering at this current moment. I think it would have something to do with uh, insurance bills, like car
Mhm.
insurance. I've always hated car insurance, mostly because I've been paying them for 25 plus years now, and I had an accident when I was young, but that's it. And so I've
Mhm.
always felt like the entire insurance agency was one big racket. So it's
Yes.
those types of bills. Like you're happy when they're there, but
Mhm.
but I've always just felt like it's crazy to me that we haven't found a way to uh, both protect ourselves, but not just pour like give money away and never have any chance to get it back.
Mhm.
So I've always felt like the whole premise of the insurance agency was like it's good that for what it is, but the fact that you're forced to have it And then if you're a good driver, you're never really rewarded for that. I mean, I know these
Mm.
companies say like we have good driver rewards, but you're still spending hundreds of dollars a month and never
Right.
needing the
That's
insurance. So
pennies. You getting back pennies of what you paid for over your lifetime.
yeah, so it's always a bill that I'm frustrated by.
All right. And last question. And before I ask you this question, I gotta say shout out to my man Travis. He is the owner of Poddex, and they make these decks of ideas and questions for podcasts. And I like using them during my lives. And sometimes it makes me ask the questions that I really wasn't thinking, but I wanted to know, you know? So, last question is, what do you do when you want to get out of your own head?
Move my body. So that could mean go for a walk. That could mean jump in the car, drive somewhere to go for a hike. But I think that um, I think our physiology had this way of you can't do too many things at once. And there's a lot of times I'll be sitting at my desk, and whether I'm stressing out over something professional or a personal thing, I found that like sitting and trying not to think about it, all I do is think about it more. If I actually
Okay.
move my body, maybe it's go to work out. Like the minute my body starts to move, my brain just doesn't have as much energy to sort of focus on that one thing. Um, and so it's the easiest way for me to clear my mind is just physically to move, even if it's just walking around the apartment or whatever. So
Awesome. Okay, so I've been holding my horses, but I want to talk about this. Um, I'm one that once I find something that works for me, I'm all with it. And I'm gonna give you a little big backstory on me. Is I started web development in 1997 or so, and it kind of morphed into multimedia developer. I like to say I'm an internet jack of all trades, hence podcasting. Um, and I got out of the whole web development scene and got more into the multimedia, YouTube videos, podcasting, and the podcast started to grow. And for a while, I was cool with just having like a link tree or something like that. That's all I really needed to get by. But as it was growing and more opportunities were coming, I was like, I really need a website. I really need to be able to put all the stuff in one place. But I'm an all in one podcaster. So that means I'm scheduling guests, I'm doing an interview, I'm editing the video and the audio, I'm posting it, I'm promoting it, I'm marketing it. So the last thing that I needed was to have to make, and not only do I have one podcast, I have two podcasts. So now the last thing I want to do is sit down and code where I haven't coded seriously in over 10, 15 years. I was
yeah,
at the point where I was about to hire somebody to do it because I just didn't have the time. I mean, there's only so many hours in a day. You probably know that. And a friend of mine, Brandon, he was like, "Hey, we were in Clubhouse one day and he was talking, and he talked about your product." And I was like, let me take a look at it. I'll see what's going on because at the time I'm going through all these different podcast apps and things. And then I logged into it. I searched for my um, I've searched for my podcast, and lo and behold, it pulled up my podcast. It made a sample page. It had all that. Now, so I've been doing this for a minute, so I'm like 30, 45 episodes deep. Pulled up all my episodes, all my show notes, all my images for it, laid it out. Like 10 minutes, it was done. And I was like, hold up. Let me try this for the other one. This got to be a
yeah.
fluke. Let me try this for the other one and see if it does it again. And it did. And the cool thing about you guys is you offer 7 days for free to test out the pro features of it, which aren't, some people they do that and then some of the features are just kind of like watered down. But these are real features that, as being somebody that was a developer back in the day, I can really appreciate it. It has the ease of, it's an easier WordPress, I want to say, you know. And a lot of times as a developer, when you come into these, plug and play type tools, they're usually lacking some way. But now this had everything I needed. Plus, it had features that I was thinking about doing down the road. Little things like being able to, add my merch store from a whole totally different platform,
Yeah.
and it all integrate. I, if I ever meet you, I'm gonna give you a hug because. So, all right, I ran it and raved enough. Tell the people about Podpage, please.
So the goal with Podpage is basically to give people the exact experience you had. I think podcasters should be focusing primarily on creating great content, and then secondarily on connecting with their audience. Everything else is just a bunch of busy work. And I'm a firm believer, and we can talk about this, that you should have a website. Like that to me is like you really, really should have a website. You don't have to use Podpage, just get a website if you're a podcaster. We can talk about why, but if you're going to do the website, the problem is that people don't know how to build websites, and they feel like they need to hire someone. That could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's unclear what platform to use. If you use WordPress, WordPress is amazing because it's flexible, but it's really complicated, really hard to maintain. You have to figure out where to put your files and how to do backups and how to do update plugins, and then you think WordPress is going to be free,
and when the plugins don't work.
And so this is the hardest part about my job communicating to new podcasters or people who've never done websites before, because the promise of WordPress plugins is amazing. Mm-hmm. But when people who have used and I actually think WordPress is an amazing platform, but it's just not easy. And I think people see WordPress and they go, oh, it's free, which it is not, because you have to pay to host the files and do all the other stuff. Right. The plugins typically are not free. So yeah, I can use this free plugin, but it doesn't do anything unless you pay $50 a year. So you end up this free product ends up you spend a ton of money, and then it breaks because they update the plugin or WordPress updates and they're not compatible anymore, and you log in and your website's broken. So it's hard to explain that to someone who hasn't felt the pain. So most people just go heads down with WordPress, and then 2 months later call me and say, okay, I want to switch over because it's a much bigger pain than I thought it was. But ultimately, I just want to make it easy. I want you to be able to, you've created the content. I want you to be able to create a website in minutes. I want to give you the ability to customize it so it feels good to you. You said, I think you said something like, usually a developer goes into a platform like this and it's lacking, but Podpage isn't. I disagree. I think Podpage is super lacking. If you want extreme customization, it's not a good platform, right? There is some rigid constraints around what your websites look like.
You're getting there, though. You're getting there, and you have the bare minimum of what people need.
Yeah.
Plus.
Yeah.
So that's the whole reason I'm an Android guy versus an iPhone guy, because I crave customization, and so far, and it's almost like you read my mind, because we scheduled this interview way before 2.0 came out. And some of the things that I was going to talk to you about today, you did with 2.0. So that makes me feel good to know that the platform I'm on will grow with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I launched about a year and a half ago, and there's not a feature that I've added that hasn't been inspired by our community. We have a really good Facebook community of about 1,000 people right now. And it's the features that I hear through them and through our customer support channels is how it's growing. And so it's a friend of mine who I told about Podpage a year and a half ago. He logged on the other day and he was like, I cannot believe how big this has gotten, or how not complex in a bad way, but just how feature rich it had gotten. And it was just because it comes from people like you, it comes from the community that says, hey, I wanted to do this, but I couldn't. Or someone the other day was like, little thing, but they were like, hey, I need to add a privacy policy to my podcast website. I don't know why. But I didn't think to build that originally, but we added that. And that 3 people today have written me about oh, I want to set up the privacy policy. This is great that you have this. It's like things like that I wouldn't have done without the community telling me. But I think that I'm a little harder on it. And this goes back to that initial question about things I'm not satisfied by. I want you to be able to build whatever kind of website you want to be able to build. But if there's this happy medium between customization and ease of use. And if you make it super customizable, there's no way you can make it easy to use anymore. And so I try to offset that by loading it with kind of what you talk about is tons of very focused podcast specific features. So yeah, you might not be able to customize it quite as much as you can customize a WordPress website, but it does automatically import all your reviews from iTunes and Podchaser. It does automatically create new website pages when you release a new episode. It does allow you to build guest profiles or put sponsor badges all over your site. There's just like things that it goes above and beyond in some ways for podcasters that offset some of the lack of customization. So
And some of the features you have, though, if you were to go have your own website or go down to WordPress or Wix or whoever, are features that you would have to find another third party vendor. And I'm thinking specifically with the forms, just something like forms. Being able to do my own mail forms without even thinking about it is great. And getting
yeah,
feedback and making my email list, and like that's a whole nother product, that's integrated already.
yeah, and like the email list is a good example. So I believe that products should be basically really, really good at one thing, primarily one thing, and not stray too far from that until you get huge. But like, I want Podpage to be the best place to build a podcast website. There's no question about that in the world. If you want to build a podcast website, is the best place. That's the aspiration. I don't want it also to be the best place to maintain an email newsletter. And so I've always tried to say like, okay, well, but I don't want to abandon someone who wants to create an email newsletter or collect email addresses. And so when we think about those types of features, I think like, well, it makes a lot of sense to collect emails through a website. Sending a newsletter is kind of a different beast. And so with that example, like we built the functionality and that allows you to very easily start capture the emails. Pop-up can come when someone hits the website for the first time and ask them for an email address, or they can fill out a form. That stuff is like very native to Podpage. And then we package up the emails and make them really easy to get over to MailChimp or MailerLite or ConvertKit or what have you. At the same time, if you would rather just use those forms, we make that possible too. So that's how I'm always trying to go those directions, because there's some people who come in who already have a third-party service that they really want to keep using, and I want to make that available. Some people who come in who don't have anything, I don't want them to have to go figure out what 18 other services to sign up for. So
Right. Yeah, right. Like I could, instead of having to log into 4 or 5 different services, I can sit down in a session and do what I need to do with Podpage.
yeah, yeah, that's the hope. To a point, like there's certainly features that I'm going to build for what that feature could be. I'll build 50% or 60%, and that'll get 90% of people everything they need. But for those people, and this is kind of what customization is like, for those people who really need that extra 30% of customization, I will, in some, if it's customization for the website, I'll happily help them get over to WordPress because they've grown and they need that. Sometimes it's I actually don't know how our voicemail feature compares to SpeakPipe, but SpeakPipe has been like a voicemail capture third-party service that people have used for a long time. We ended up building our own. So when you build a website, you automatically can start receiving voicemails from your audience. If our solution isn't good enough because it's one of a feature as opposed to our whole focus, you can swap it out with SpeakPipe. And so we're sort of agnostic when it comes to that stuff. I want to provide like a ton of features that allow someone to basically be able to plug in and not have to sign up for a bunch of other services. But if they do find a service that's better, I want them to be able to use it on their website.
Exactly. Be able to already in it. So, because you hate to sign up for somebody and then it's not compatible.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
would just be. And I'm at the point right now, so I'm loving Podpage. And I'm almost to a point like I might would, if I came to that circumstance and it didn't work with Podpage, I might, first of all, I would send you an email. And I got to give it to you. I was highly impressed when I first set up my site. I had a couple issues, and mostly it was because of me, but I had a few issues. And to be able to send the email and to actually have the the CEO of the company hit you back, and I could genuinely tell that you was interested. It wasn't one of those canned emails. I can tell immediately that I was actually talking to you. That was incredible. And in a world lacking of good support, in customer
Yeah.
support, technical support, whatever, that is very refreshing.
It's it blows my mind that more people, executives, don't do support. I think at every company, everyone at the company should do a little bit of customer support for certain types of products. Because there's no better way to learn from your customers than to actually talk to them, right? Like I think a lot of these companies get used to sending out like a market research team to come back with findings as opposed to just talking to the people that actually use your product every day. So that's the hardest thing. I think I'm not a great delegator, and when it comes to delegating support, I've always done it for way longer than I should because I feel like if I don't have that direct connection with customers, I'm going to be out of touch with what they need. When you were saying, I can't remember what your problems were, but there's certainly times that people write me and say, I can't figure out how to do this. And the reason is because I made it really hard to find. And it's hearing people say like, I can't figure out how to do it that makes me kind of reevaluate and go like, oh, with fresh eyes, if I hadn't built this, that doesn't make any sense that it's on that screen. Why did I put it there? And so that's how the product improves. We don't do phone support, which some people are frustrated by, but that's sort of the trade-off. It's like by basically being like, we are here on email almost 24 hours a day. That's the best way we can communicate with people. It's so much easier over email, especially for a digital product too, because when someone asks a question, you can click a link. Like we've got our whole support system set up. When you ask me a question, it shows me your website, so I can actually like not only answer your question, but usually I can send back a link to like, here's the place in the dashboard you can go to fix this or change this. And it's a much more helpful way to do things.
Yeah, I think the only thing right now I spent the original 15 minutes or so making both of my sites. And then one of the reasons I'm tired right now is last night was the first time I got to sit down with some of the features of 2.0. And yeah, I spent between the two sites, I spent maybe an hour or two. But I look at that time. Yes, I spent an hour on a site, right? But what I accomplished within that hour in the long run is so worth my time because
Yeah.
now everything's set up and I love the automation. Like I have my site set up right now that soon as I upload to, I'm using Anchor at the moment. As soon as I upload to Anchor, like it populates faster on your site than it does with some of the other sites. And then all I have to do, because my podcast is is video and audio, is go in and add the YouTube link, and I'm done. That's it. I don't have to do
Mm-hmm.
anything else. I'm playing with setting up. I set up my host account on one, and now, all right. So before I get the cart ahead of the horse, because I'm gonna tell you what my all-time favorite feature 2.0 is. I actually want to show the people what's going on with some of these features that you just added, and this is in addition to what we already had with Podpage. So you added monetization tools, and you feel free to jump in if you want to talk about any of these in
Yeah, I
detail.
mean, I'll briefly. This was a long time coming. So essentially, you can do customizations. You can like upload images and put them around your website if you want. But this is one of those areas that a very typical thing that podcasters do is get sponsors for their episodes or their podcast. And so in this case, I was like, well, we can actually build a feature that's very specific for podcasters that you would never see on WordPress or Squarespace because this is a normal person isn't going to need sponsors for their flower shop or whatever. So with this, you can actually there's a place in the dashboard where you can enter in different sponsors. You can upload descriptions, links, images, and then it automatically will create a page on your website specifically to list all the sponsors. And you can go into any of your episodes and you can tag those sponsors to your episode, and then it puts their logo on your episode page. So, episode 10 sponsored by Microsoft. In the top right, it would actually say Microsoft, it would have the logo, and then they can click on that and they go to the sponsors page. So just try to make it a little bit more automated. For some people, they want it slightly different, but this covered the use case for a lot of things. And so making it easy for you to show up your sponsors, we've added like a light integration with Google AdSense. I'm not a big fan of banner ads all over a website, but a lot of people wanted it. So made it all you have to do is enter your AdSense ID, and we take care of the rest in getting the ads on there. There's a few more advanced features around donations. So if you want to collect donations through Buy Me a Coffee or Ko-fi, whatever it's called, you enter your ID and like we add a widget to your page that at the bottom it pops up. Someone can click the coffee symbol, it pops up a widget, and so just a lot of stuff to help you actually draw, not only engage with your audience, but actually be able to support your podcast monetarily.
So I do say that it's serendipity that I found you at this time because over the week I just closed my first corporate sponsorship deal. I
Oh,
can't
cool!
talk about it just
Congratulations.
yet, but as soon as I saw this, I was like, yeah, it's right on time. So I like that. Let's go down through. We talked about the sponsors and listener tools.
Yeah, I think the reason to have a website is to connect with your listeners. That's it. That's the primary reason. Because if you distribute your podcast and it just shows up in Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Google Podcasts, like people will be able to search for it, find it, and listen to it. But having your actual website allows you to connect with them. Otherwise, you just they're just a number that you get through your iTunes dashboard. So that we really heavily lean into listener tools. I never know whether they call them listener tools or audience tools or community, whatever. But one, make it really easy for you to get their email address, which is the easiest way to start engaging with them. We make it possible by default. They can leave you a voicemail, which is cool. And so you can say at the end of your show, like, hey, if you enjoyed my conversation with Brenden, leave me a voicemail, let me know what you thought, and I will play the top 3 voicemails at the beginning of the next show, right? And it starts closing that listener loop. We make it easy to add comment boxes to episode pages. So you can say, hey, if you enjoyed this episode, go to mydomain.com/podpage interview and leave a comment. And then your community can talk to each other. And so we've just been like adding stuff like that in to make it a place to not only like broadcast your message, but actually engage with the audience that you're building. So
yeah, and so I'm surprised that you don't already. Do you have a podcast? I have to ask you.
I've played around with the idea of doing one, but I haven't. But I don't have one. But I've listened.
You know the important tools that we need. Like engagement is everything for growing your podcast, and it's like it's developed from a podcaster's. And I guess that's because of the support and the input you get from your users, but it's grown from everything that a podcaster really needs with a web presence.
Yeah. Yeah. I have never had my own podcast. I worked in the music industry for a long time. I've worked as an app developer. I've built tools like this for app developers and musicians. Any creator needs this stuff. If you're creating something, it's like, if you're a musician, you're writing songs. Very few musicians can be long-term viable if they don't build an actual relationship with their community. And so people who build apps and stuff, same kind of thing. Like you just need to build a community. You need to engage with your customers, your users, and it's no different for podcasters. So I got a little bit of a head start knowing that podcasters would need it just because of that. And also I'm a podcast listener. So I have a totally different relationship with podcasts that I listen to, where all I do is get the alert from Apple that I've got a new episode's out, and I listen to the episode, versus the ones that I've taken the step to engage with the podcaster and join their community on Facebook or go to their website. Like it's a different type of if one podcast stopped being created, I wouldn't care. The other one I would, because I've gotten a little deeper. So.
All right, so I want to get into my all-time favorite part of 2.0.
Okay.
Oh my God. Hold on. Oh my God. This has to be the guest intake release form, and the release agreement has to be my all-time favorite edition in this version.
So cool, huh?
Oh my goodness. And when you go into it, and I told you I was up till like 3:00 in the morning playing with this, because it also integrates into Calendly.
Yeah.
So I can send you my I could do either or. I can send you my Calendly. You can sign up, get your spot. Then I got a little note at the bottom. Click here for guest information. You click it. It gets all your information. It gets me my thumbnail. It gets me all your links. And then I can save it directly to Podpage. So when your episode comes, I could just drop down on one more. Go.
Yeah. I'm glad you like it. Yeah. It's funny. These things kind of develop organically. And the way that feature came to be was we had episode pages. People would write a bunch of stuff about their guests in the bottom of the episode pages in their show notes. And I saw this, anytime I see content that looks like it should be structured, but it's not, it's just like in a text box. And I see it on a regular basis. I think, oh, this could be a feature. This happened with sponsors. And so built a feature that allowed you to build a guest profile. So if you have a pod page, you could build a profile for me, put my thumbnail on it have my information, um, and then connect that to the episode that I'm on. And what's cool about that is it gives Google yet another thing to index, and if someone searches for my name and your name, like it gives another result that tells Google, hey, this is actually like a good connection. Um, and so we built these profiles. The users loved it, and then they're like, God, I love these, but it's a pain in the ass to have to fill them all out. Can I get my
Mm-hmm.
guests to do it? And so it's just this organic, like, hey, users, what do you think of this? We love it, but can it do this? Cool. All right. What do you think of this? We love it, but can it do this? And so um, then I released the intake form, and people loved it, and they were like, oh, it'd be really cool to have them sign a release.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to a bunch of people, and they really liked the idea, but they didn't have a release. It kind of made them feel like, oh, I got to go find a release now. So I connected with a
Right. Like
lawyer.
now I got to get a lawyer and go through all this
Yeah,
hassle. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I connected with a lawyer, and he had already sort of written a blog post to share this information out there. And I was like, can I just use the form that I mean, I'll make this the default um, form that is given to people by default. And so we partnered together he made some edits to it. But yeah, so it makes it super easy for you to not only get that information, but also protect yourself legally and have them sign a release without ever having to do any work. So
So for
I'm
a
glad you like it.
podcaster like me that does all his back end, you just saved me a whole lot of legwork because
Cool.
it's a pain. You do your episode and you gotta chase them down for the thumbnail, and give me all your links and what you want to talk about, and just scheduling it. And like I was saying, you could do it two ways. You can either send them your Calendly, or you could send them the intake form. They fill out the intake form at the success page. Just shoot them off to Calendly, and they schedule the
Yeah.
interview.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it because you just shaved off at least a good hour or two of every day for me, because now I don't have to chase. And when a person takes the initiative to do that, they're vested in it, and you're more likely to have less people that don't show up than not, because they took
Yeah.
the time, they picked their own time, they uploaded their picture, they filled out this form, so they feel like they're vested in it already with their
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for that, man.
Thanks.
That
Appreciate
is
that.
it.
Yeah, to be honest, the hard part is that I think that feature is a much bigger deal than I've made it out to be for people,
It
and
is.
I need to market it a little bit better. It kind of gets lost in the shuffle of all these features, but I think it's a big one that we need to figure out. Stuff like that is hard because there's some people that have a great WordPress website that they love, but that feature would save them a ton of time and energy, and they look at that and they say, I want to use it, but I don't want to switch my website over. In the past, I've tried to figure out how do I turn some of these features on for people who don't even have a website on Podpage, but it's a lot harder. So
Hey, you got to get down and lay down. You got to come over to our side of town now.
yeah,
But yeah, man, I'm so excited about that. I knew I was supposed to go to bed last night, but I had to set up both. So, actually, I think the people at Calendly owe you, because I had been procrastinating about setting that up. Well, as soon as I saw the integration, I was like, oh, let's do this. And like over just instantly, you changed my workflow.
yeah, cool.
So,
That's good to know.
man, your subscription paid for itself already.
Well, it's funny you said like I spent 2 hours last night working on it. Think about how long it would have taken. You said you had 30 episodes. If you were to set up a Squarespace site or a WordPress site, and you were to have to like copy and paste, create a page for every one of those episodes, even if it took you a minute, which it would take you a lot more than a minute per page, that's still 40 minutes just to copy that episode stuff over. So I actually,
Yeah.
when you said I spent a lot of time, I was like, I feel bad when it's, some people say like, oh, I spent all day yesterday working on my website. Even though that's still more faster than they probably would have on a different platform, I feel bad. But when you say 1 to 2 hours, I think, oh, that's pretty good. If you got something you like in 1 to 2 hours, I feel good about that.
But it wasn't one of those time periods where you just like, oh, I got to get through this. I got to do it. I was kind of excited to do it and see what would happen. Then I woke my son up and was like, hey, test this link. Let me see if this works. So,
Cool.
yeah, man, you saved me a lot of work. And like to me, one of the hardest things is chasing people down for that thumbnail. Sometimes that's the hardest time. And to be able to have it before the episode even starts, that's great.
Yeah. Good. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
So, all right, before we wrap it up, what do you want to tell? This is your chance here. What do you want to tell people about your platform?
Um, I think that even if you have a website, unless you're just like super thrilled with your website and you spend a ton of money, you're never going to change. I always tell people always ask me like, pitch me on Podpage, like how to convince me to use you over WordPress or over Squarespace. What I always tell people is like, if I could just get every podcaster to go in and enter their name and see what's created. Um, that's all I want people to do because the product will speak for itself. So if you're thinking about it, if there's anything appealing about this conversation around like, oh, maybe I should try it for my website, don't do any research or try to like spend a lot of time comparing. Just go to Podpage, click build a website, enter your name. And in about 20 seconds, you'll see, I think, 15 different versions of a website that you could have. Those are all live versions that would work out. And just see if you like it. And if it wins you over, then awesome. If it doesn't, like have a great time on WordPress or Squarespace if that's a better fit. But like give it a 2-minute try and see what you think. So
And that's all it would take. I got a cousin that actually got me into podcasting. And soon as I finished my site, I was like, dude, do you got a website? And he was like, no. I was like, oh, really? Click this link.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, yeah. You got an ambassador in me, man, because
Thanks.
coming from the development side, I know the work it would have taken me to get the same style. And you're hard on yourself, man. Don't be so hard on yourself because you're doing a great job. Just the pure frustration that I was getting ready to have to go through because my podcast started growing faster than what I expected, and I needed to catch up. And
Yeah.
this gives me that professional look and presence and with all the tools built in, look like I'm a mega corporation, not some guy that's just, doing lives in the middle of his living room.
Yeah. 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 Totally. Yep. Well, thank you. And as a user, please continue to send feedback. That's the only way that it gets better. As an example, you like the intake form. I've had a bunch of feedback since we launched 2.0 about 24 hours ago, a little over 24 hours ago. People have said, "Oh, I love it, but I don't know how to find it. I see it in my dashboard. I don't know how to tell users to go to it." And it's so funny because I was like, oh, "That's a great point. I forgot to like make a link for it to make it really clear. Here's the link you sent people." Some people were like, "I want to add it as a link on my website,"
I
and I
was
feel a
going to
little weird
mention
about.
that. Like, I want to be able to add it into the header.
And it's so funny. This is a great example of like I would have expected to not hear that feedback because if it's in the header and anyone who comes to your website can click it, that means you're going to get a lot of people filling it out who might not be guests, just random people, listeners. And so I sort of approached it. I was like, well, I can't just make it a public form, and I've got some people who, I can make that an option. But even for the people who want it to be private, they're like, I don't even know what the URL is to send people. I was like, oh, that's a good point. I never like exposed that link anywhere. So it's stuff like that. The platform dies without
I did
feedback.
show a preview and let it do the preview, then copy the URL, and then now I
Yeah,
got that in my clipboard, so
yeah,
I'll just send that out. But I'll wait for the update.
yeah.
But like from my one site, LVAD Talk. LVAD Talk is a podcast. I have what's called an LVAD, and it's a left ventricle assist device. And basically, I have a mechanical heart. And I talk to other people who have them, and I talk to people. For a lot of people, it's a bridge to transplant. Like I'm waiting to get a transplant. This is what's keeping me alive until then. So I talk to people who either have an LVAD or going through heart failure or going through a transplant. And we talk about, we try to talk more about the wins because there are a lot of wins, and that doesn't always just make you who you were. And I'm also trying to shine a light on organ donation. With that said, though, a lot of those people, it would be great for them to be able to come up and be like, book your time because I don't really turn down too many people. As long as you have the qualifications of, having an LVAD or going through a heart transplant, I'll talk to you. So that gets half the work out the way. If you could just come to the website, click the button, fill out the intake form, hit me on my Calendarly, then I can get in contact with you and we can go.
Hmm. Well,
So
what you can do in between before, I don't know. I need to dig around to see how I'm going to build it or what I'm going to do. But in the meantime, if you go to the page designer and you go to the navigation bar area, you can add any links you want to your
And that's how I'm
navigation bar.
gonna do it. Yeah, that's how I'm gonna do it.
So you can do that there in the meantime. So that's what I've been
and
telling
then
people.
I can have it on that one and don't necessarily need it on the 757 Renaissance Man one.
Yeah.
And I can
Yeah.
give that out ad hoc. So see, this is what you get, guys. I'm talking to them. We're innovating live. So Brenden,
Well, thank you for joining the community and thanks for the feedback so far. I'm looking forward to getting more. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, you messed up now. You can't get rid of me. Well, once you're on the show, we're connected.
Good.
So I am looking forward to seeing what else great comes from Podpage. You set the bar high, man, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Matter of fact, when we finish this, I'm going to be doing a little bit more customizing because
cool.
unlike what you think, I think is highly customizable,
Good.
and versus the time I have to put into it versus the rewards I'm gonna get from it is totally worth it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Spread the word. It's the only thing. Everyone always says like, "Oh, can I leave you a testimonial somewhere? What can I do?" I'm like, just when you meet other podcasters, let them know it exists. That's the only.
Well,
that's
we
it.
have this now, and I'm gonna give you a copy of this so you can put it on your YouTube. And I got an affiliate link, so I'm spreading the word.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another 757 Renaissance Man live episode. You can reach us because of our page at www.renaissanceman.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sean. This is Brenden, Podpage, and we are out. Class.